So I tried doing a cold start video. It was going pretty good. But then I wanted to be safe, and when I was putting the camera back, I decided I was going to close the screen. But I didn't realize that by closing the screen it was going to stop the recording, so I don't edit these, I'm not going to do it, but I'll give you a little rev. This is the wife's SUV. It's an X5 M550i. Sounds pretty good. But that's all. We got a good topic today. We're going to talk about AI. Everyone loves talking about AI. We're going to talk about AI and software engineers. And if any of us have a future in this career, or if we're doomed. I feel like I've talked about this before, but I might have written a newsletter article on it and then done a live stream and not actually done a code commute episode, so we'll do that. Traffic says it's going to be an hour. Kill me. This is the 4th day at the office this week. I was just talking to my skip level, and I said, I'm not coming tomorrow. Just half kidding, but it's a lot of travel. We've had a pretty busy week, so it'd be nice to not have to commute in. So, how do I want to kick this thing off? I guess I should remind people, if you have topics you want me to go over, comment below, let me know. We'll go over software engineering stuff, career stuff. And if you want it to be anonymous, find me on social media. It's DevLeader. And we'll address that. I want to see if I can get a gurgle sound of the exhaust, because, oh, it's so good. One sec. Can you hear that? I don't know. I guess we'll find out after. It's probably too windy. This thing's got a tiny little... They call it a dead cat. I don't know why. It's a pretty terrible name. But maybe it was just wind. Maybe you couldn't hear the gurgles and burbles. But yeah, send stuff anonymously, or send it. Tell me you want it to be anonymous. Just message me on a social media platform if you're choosing, or comment below if you don't care, if other people can read it. Okay, AI. All our jobs are doomed. No such thing as programmers ever again. Yeah, I'll be straight up. I think it's kind of bullshit. Because I think that it's going to take, first of all, I think at some point in the future, if we achieve some type of superior AI, then sure, it'll start replacing all sorts of jobs. I don't think it's going to be software engineers specifically. So I'm not concerned. I'm not discouraging anyone from getting into software engineering. I think it's still got lots of potential. So there's the spoiler. You can end the video now. We're done here. But to be serious, I genuinely don't think that our careers are going to be replaced and stuff. I do think that our careers and what we focus on is going to change. 100%, I think that that's going to be the case. Because I think it's like any other sort of large advancement in technology. I really feel like I've talked about this before. Anyway, so my belief here is like, okay, let's use some of the examples that we're dealing with and kind of extrapolate, okay? So like when we're working with AI today, we have AI, like we can ask it questions, we can get it to design systems, we can get it to convert code, we can get it to do all sorts of stuff, which is awesome, okay? But the challenge is that it's really hard to just blindly trust the output of it. And that means that like if you have AI that's like sort of just doing all the work for you, it's gonna be wrong a lot, which which right now is okay as long as you're not solely relying on AI doing all your work for you, right? It's like, it's helping, at least in my use cases and people I talk to that feel like they can use it effectively, it's helpful, but it's not a replacement. Okay, so what the argument becomes is like, yes, but it's only going to get better, and it can already replace, like, can already replace junior devs and can already do really advanced stuff. And I just think that the reality of that's going to be that it's going to start replacing, because it already has, it's going to start replacing stuff that we as developers consider to be like mundane. Now, we don't mean simple, because it can do complex stuff. But when I say mundane, I mean like either because it's simple or where it's repetitive, or it's like, it could even be complicated, but your time would be better spent doing something else. This thing is a beast, man. So much fun. It's actually a lot of fun to drive this SUV. After driving that X1 for too long, this is real good. So, my thought process around the AI stuff is like, as someone who, like, okay, I guess I should back up. I'm not writing software every day at work, but I program heavily outside of work every single day. So I do use AI tools. I find that they're a huge benefit. So some examples of what I use them for are certainly just like AI Code Complete, right? So like using Copilot and Visual Studio, getting Code Complete coming up. Autocomplete? What am I calling it? Code Complete? I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Like the fact that I can start typing some patterns and Copilot recognizes, like, if it knows or is pattern matching to figure out, like, I'm trying to build like a factory or I'm trying to build a repository, like it's really good at getting a lot of the patterns that I use regularly put down. This traffic looks horrific. It's already backed up. We gotta move over. Not a good sign, that's for sure. So I like heavily rely on that. I've talked about this part for sure before, that when my Copilot was down briefly for a day or something, or a session, it felt like it almost felt like I didn't know how to program anymore, because I was so used to having it complete really big sections of code for me, or at least get them started. Now, when I say that it's doing that, I still have to heavily modify what it's doing, but it's like it gets the shape of the code that I want. It's a funny thing to say, like the shape of the code, but truly it's going to get, like, for a lot of what I'm doing, like 70 to 90%, and I just got to go touch it up. But I also know what I'm doing because I've been doing it for a long time. So I know that when it's auto-completing stuff for me, I got to go read it. I got to go make sure it's actually what I want. But this is one type of thing. It's like the auto-complete style of things. Now, I can also, and I do, I'll go to use ChatGPT. I'll have it write SQL queries and stuff for me. A lot of the time it's like I'm designing schemas for a database, and I know based on my design that it's sort of denormalized in a way that I want, and like I'm happy with the structure and the organization of things. Could it be better? Obviously, all the time. But I can go focus on that and then just say, like, hey, like ChatGPT, I need like a query that's going to pull information from these tables. Here's their schema, and I need a result that looks like this. Oh, this car has hand gestures, so I can't speak Italian in here apparently, because it picks up on my hand gestures. Let's not do that. So I'll use it for doing that kind of stuff. So the SQL queries, here's an example, right? When I'm getting it to do SQL queries for me, like, arguably those are complicated. That's a complex thing that it's doing, because sometimes it's doing stuff where I'm like, man, like, I'm glad I didn't have to think about that. So it's not that it's only for mundane, simple things, but truly it's like, it's mundane to me because I'm like, that's not a creative thing that I want to spend time on. Okay? Like, I don't want to spend time trying to think about optimizing SQL queries and this kind of stuff. Like, it's not a good use of my time. I would rather be, figuring out other things to be working on, depending on what I'm building. But almost certainly, I could tell you that if given time constraints, sitting there optimizing SQL queries is not up there with things I want to spend my creative energy on. So that's one type of thing. Regular expressions are another really common one. And then the other thing is like just refactoring code sometimes. Sometimes I'll have massaged a bunch of stuff over time and I'm like, man, like this code's pretty messy, but like functionally it works, and I have tests and stuff on it. And I might just say like, hey, like go refactor it to, and then I'll give it like some type of stylistic things that I'm after, and then have it go do that. So if you're a .NET developer, an example is like, I had code where it's using a lot of link and it's kind of messy, and it's actually like a hot path in the code, and I will say like, hey, like this method, we actually know the collection sizes, like just go initialize these things, like you don't need to use link to go over it. And other times it's the opposite, where I'll say like, hey, like this is, I know I'm iterating stuff, too many times, like go clean this up, collapse it down, make it more readable, blah, blah, blah. Like, I know how to do it. I just don't want to go spend the time doing it. I got to move over lanes here, and this is going to be, if you watched videos from yesterday, it's the same shit as yesterday. This spot's terrible on the highway. And if this spot's bad, it means where I'm going is going to be even worse. So, not going to be fun. Well, again, you're probably watching this going, yeah, we know where it's at today, but like it's obviously, everyone keeps saying in a few years, like we're toast. I still think no. I think what we're going to see in a few years is that, and maybe even before that, like the amount that we can trust the output continues to improve. Come on, buddy, get in here. No. I would love to turn this camera around and just like show you people trying to zipper merge, because people don't understand how it works, and it's hilarious and painful. This person has 2 car lengths open in front of me, and they're getting impatient and trying to creep up, and all they're doing is shortening the amount of room that they have to zipper merge in. It's ridiculous. And look, I just merged instantly. Easy. Okay. So I think we're going to see that we can start trusting AI output a lot more over the next little while, because the accuracy will go up. And we'll have more, like just naturally from using it more and more, we as people prompting it will have better experience, like crafting better prompts. But I don't think what's going away is that we're still going to need someone to prompt the AI, right? There still needs to be some type of like input to this system, and there needs to be a feedback mechanism. People will say, okay, well, there's AI agents that can orchestrate things together. Sure. I mean, you could say that you put together an AI team and you told it, go build $1 million business, and it did. Awesome. Okay, does that mean that it replaced people? Like, did anyone just lose their job from that? It's kind of weird, right? It's like, not just because it did something that a person could do does not necessarily mean that someone's job is now lost. It's a kind of a weird thing to say. So I'm not thinking, hey, a job's going to be replaced. I'm thinking jobs are going to be enhanced significantly, right? Like, as I said, I'm already heavily relying on AI for, I was calling it code complete, but autocomplete. It's funny when you're talking to yourself in a car with a camera on you, you say stupid stuff, but hey. So I'm not concerned about that. I think it's going to be enhancement because that's what I'm observing. I think where it gets dangerous for people, and when I say dangerous, I mean in terms of like your career being at risk, has nothing to do with AI. It has nothing to do with AI and everything to do with these two other ingredients. And those ingredients are technological change. So that's one ingredient. And the other ingredient is being complacent. So if you are complacent in the work you do, and we introduce technological change, you should be afraid of losing your job. And that's it. It just so happens that in this case, the technological change we're talking about is AI. And it seems very much like magic, right? It's a very fascinating thing. It's very powerful. But that's technological change. And then the people that are at risk of losing their job are the people that are complacent. Now, what does it mean when I say complacent? And I mean that people who are, number one, unwilling to even look at AI as a solution for anything, right? Like, oh, that's dumb, it's a fad, or, oh, it's always wrong, or I won't, for what, make up a reason to not use it, right? So you're basically just letting this thing that's gaining more and more momentum, that's not going away, you're just refusing to acknowledge its existence or using it. To me, that's a very dangerous spot to be in. The second part to that complacency is about not wanting to change anything that you're doing. I want to give you a completely different example. Has nothing to do with AI, and I don't want to say this to trigger people and have them sort of take this the wrong way, but I think it's a fair example, okay? So in software engineering, there are, depending where you work, there are roles like QA or tester, this kind of thing. Now, let me add a disclaimer here that I have worked with some amazing testers. So what I'm about to say, before someone gets all angry, this is bound to happen, is I'm not about to say that I don't think testers are useful, okay? I'm not about to say that, but what I have seen is that working in teams with testers that refuse to acknowledge or invest time into automation. Okay? Now, again, if you're listening this and this is getting you triggered already, I'm not saying that there is no value in a manual test of some sort. Manual validation, a manual test, however you would like to define it. There are certainly things that doing manually can add benefit to. Did I say that right? That doing things manually will add a benefit from doing? Anyway, words are hard. It's Thursday. So I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is that if you ignore the fact that you can automate parts of the manual steps that you are doing, I would say you should be afraid of losing your job. And I mean that because, like, if you say, no, automation's bad, or no, I don't want to learn how to automate things, I'm only ever going to manually test stuff, I would say you are narrowing you're narrowing the space that you can be effective. And you will eventually become obsolete. Because everything around automation is advancing. That's not slowing down. So if you say, I don't want to do that, I don't want to learn it, or this is how I've always done it, you're like, I'm not going to move past manual testing. Well, yeah, I'm never going to automate things. Then I would say expect that over time, like you're gonna be replaced. So you should be focusing more and more on automation, and that gap of where it's valuable to manually step through things, it will still exist, but that gap will shrink in terms of like where. Again, more people that can't zipper merge. Here we go. There's still 2 lanes for like 300 meters. Stop doing this. Just, you make things worse for everyone when you do this. Like, seriously, is zipper, like, I'm genuinely curious if you're watching this, when I say zipper merging, if you're like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, like, please let me know, because I feel like sometimes I'm taking crazy pills when I watch people do, like, just fail to understand zipper merging. There's 2 lanes. Use them. And then when it's 1 lane, you should not be trying to cut people off. You should form a zipper. 1 car, and then the next car, and then the next one. It's not rocket surgery. I don't understand. Okay, so what does this mean for people that are trying to get into the industry, right? Did they miss out? Like, is software development done because by the time they were able to start landing jobs, there's going to be no such thing as programmers? Again, I think the answer is no. I think there's still plenty of opportunity. See, this person figured out the zipper merge. They said, oh, I see that the lane has ended and you are trying to get in. I will wait. It makes perfect sense. So for people that are focusing on becoming software developers, again, if you're like, hey, I'm just not going to look at AI, and so if you're getting advice from other developers and they're like telling you to not look at AI, I would say that's dangerous. Just because they didn't have AI when they were learning, I think that that's like a dangerous piece of advice. Now, when I'm giving advice to software developers up and coming, I do suggest they use AI. I think it can be a great tool. But I think it's something that you need to think about using properly. And I've talked about this recently. Everything's blurring together, so I don't know if it's on Commute or DevLeader or both. But when I talked about this concept, it must have been on Commute. I was suggesting that, like, one of the things that's dangerous is when you use AI and you're not thinking about about what it's giving you. Come on. Let me in here. See, we can do that in this thing. We can't do that in the X1 courtesy vehicle. So if you're just getting output from an LLM to speed up your work and then not learning from it or not questioning it, I think you're missing out on a huge amount of learning as a junior. So I would say, like, don't not use an LLM. But I think you want to use it wisely, right? I think that's important. Ask it questions. Use it to unblock yourself. We got to get moved over here. We got to move over a bunch of lanes. I'm behind a stupid truck. It's wrecking everything. Come on, buddy. Move up, move up, move up. Let me in. Yeah. Yeah, let me in. There's got to be a huge accident somewhere here because traffic is backed up on both sides of the road. So I do think that people that are junior, that are getting into the industry and learning using AI tools, I think that they're going to be set up for a ton of success personally. I think it's the exact opposite of what people are saying, where it's like, oh, there's going to be no programmers, like there's no such thing as software developers. I think there's going to be so many things related to this field still. It's just that it's going to look different. For example, something that could be fascinating is like, do programming languages look anything like what they do today, right? Are you writing code in a traditional sense? Maybe after 5-10 years, maybe not. For new code. But like, do you seriously think that in 5 years there's going to be no C++ code that anyone has to work with? And that just like AI is just going to be dealing with all of this on its own? Like, I just don't think that that's realistic. I think that's a bit of a pipe dream, personally. So, thank you, Google, for letting me know there's a stalled vehicle. I had no idea based on the flow of traffic. I feel like it's a bus that's stalled across all of the lanes. God. Okay, gotta get over one more lane. I'm not gonna make, this is gonna be a super long drive home, so I'll probably end this code commute partway, just so that you're not like falling asleep, because I realize I'm not talking as much as I want to because this traffic is so bad, and I'm just trying to focus and do the right thing here, so I apologize for that. So I want to give you some more concrete thoughts. So people that are up and coming, I think by leveraging AI and kind of being part of that, as the AI space is also growing and booming, I genuinely think that they're going to have, number one, more experience and familiarity with tools. Because if you think about developers that have been in the space for 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years, the longer you're in the space, the more likelihood that you're kind of set in your ways. Okay? Now, not everyone, and it's a really good quality if you're willing to always learn, right? Doesn't matter if you've been doing something for 30 years. You're like, I'm an expert at this. I've been doing it for forever. If someone's able to come around and say, yeah, but have you thought about doing things this other way? Keeping an open mind can be a very powerful thing, right? Because you can continue to learn and improve. So I think that for juniors that are getting introduced while this AI boom is happening, they get to ride this wave of like crazy new things that are super powerful, super convenient, super productivity tools, right? I think there's a huge opportunity there. Now, I want to call out one of the risks a little bit more clearly, I think, and I've already hinted at it, but I want to kind of go down this little thought experiment here. So I talked about this in the past. One of the risks is that, and even earlier in this video, but like one of the risks is like when we're using AI, instead of in this space where we're getting stuck on problems, right? We're using AI to kind of just bridge the gap. We can ask it and say, just do this for us, right? If we do this so much that we don't have to do as much critical thinking and we don't have to understand how things work, to me, that seems like it's one of the biggest risks of just relying on AI. Okay? But what I think is very interesting about this, and I would be curious your perspective on it, I feel like this isn't going to be a popular opinion. I don't even know if I believe this, but it's like a thought that I'm entertaining, and that's like, a lot of us that are software developers now, been in the industry for a while, like we learned particular ways, right? So just to give you a more concrete example, I went to university. I went for computer engineering, so there's more of a hardware focus. I got to learn about, like, I had to have classes with oscilloscopes and learn about measuring, frequency and voltage and dealing with circuits. And then in later classes, I got to deal with, like, how, registers work and like CPU architecture. But those classes weren't like cutting edge CPU architecture. It was like, here's like some of the most primitive thoughts around computer or like CPU architecture, just so you could have like an understanding of some of the basics, right? But these are all like the building blocks that they introduced. And then it was like, and you're set free. So what I find really bizarre about that is, like, my formal education felt like this really like old school way of looking at things, even when I was going through it. So I was like, okay, I know you're trying to teach me the fundamentals, but like, man, like, it would be really cool to go take these courses and feel like I know something that's being actively used. Okay, so I go through this process and then I get into the industry. I'm learning by practicing things. You keep hearing people say build projects. I'm constantly building stuff. People will say, like, learn these different types of languages. So, I'm learning in a pretty traditional sense, I would say. And I feel like people that, are around, a same level of experience as me probably did a very similar thing. People that were before me, maybe sort of like call it the previous generation of learners before me, I bet you they were spending a lot more time, and I don't have stats on this, but this is the thought experiment. I bet you they were spending a lot more time doing significantly lower level stuff. Like, yes, I've worked with pointers in C and C++, and unfortunately Objective-C. I've done this stuff. But, like, I bet you a lot of people have this philosophy where it's like, you should start with a programming language to learn about pointers, because this is going to be how you learn things effectively. You need to be doing this. This is how it's done. And I feel like I was already riding the end of that, where I'm like, I should probably understand it, but like, I'm not going to waste a ton of time trying to like actively program with pointers, because like, why would I, based on the programming languages I'm using actively? I just don't need to. I get the concept. I'm not going to practice it a ton, because like, why? So to extend this thought experiment, what I'm genuinely curious about is even the advice I give, like, hey, you should be asking the LLM to explain the details, right? Ask it to explain the options, make sure you understand the details. Is it possible that we will see that people don't do that, and they continue to not do that, and it actually ends up just allowing them to be more effective because they can operate at a higher level? So like, this next wave of software developers coming through, they're like, I literally don't understand like how a pointer works. And you would be like, what? This is insanity. Like, how do you not know a pointer, and you've been a software developer for 4 years and you can't explain what a pointer is to me? That sounds ridiculous to a lot of us, I'm sure. But like, is it possible that they just literally will not have to know? Just like I can tell you pretty confidently that I bet you a lot of people don't really understand how like information is put onto the stack, right? Like, and having stack frames and stuff. I bet you there's tons of developers that don't understand this thing, because they've never had to. Or how like registers work. Why would they have to know that? Yet for a lot of us, these were concepts that like we were told, you need to know this to progress. So I'm genuinely very curious if we'll start to see this more and more. Oh my God. Horn didn't work. This person just swerved out in front of me. I had to slam on the brakes. You've probably observed that I drive around a lot of really stupid people. There's stupid people everywhere, unfortunately. That's okay. We just got to keep our distance. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, as I'm kind of building up even this thought experiment, is like, I think there's still a ton of room for us to be building with AI, supplementing our work with AI, letting AI take over what we would consider to be mundane parts of our jobs. And we will still have people that we call software developers or software engineers. I just think it will look very different. And I think it looks very different based on what we're spending our time doing, essentially. So conceptually, we're still part of building software. But I might not have to go write particular things anymore. Just like I was giving you the SQL query example. I'm at a point with AI where I don't have to spend much time at all writing SQL queries. And I use frameworks like ORM frameworks, one called Dapper, where I need the SQL query in my code. I actually like having the SQL query in my code. I might be weird, but I like having it. I like being able to look at it and understand it, know what it's doing. Because if I need to tune it and tweak it, I would like to be able to do so. But I don't have to write them anymore. And when I say I don't have to write them, you might say, well, there's Entity Framework Core, Nick, like you never had to write it anyway. But my point is, like, I like having it there and I still don't have to draft it myself. Which is really neat. Like, it's a neat advancement. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of room for people as software developers still with AI. Do I predict at some point in the future that software developers will be replaced by AI? Sure. I think that there's a point like that in the future. But I think at that point, it's because there's a massive, like, societal shift where it's not just software developers. It's basically like you could effectively replace most roles, most things that people do with AI. And that's kind of like why I'm not really fearful. Right, I have like a similar philosophy, not to do a huge tangent here. I'm very good at huge tangents. So when I was still living in Canada, and like I lived near Toronto area, and there's a bit of a housing price bubble. And people kept saying, like, oh, housing prices, like, they're going to crash, they're going to crash, they're going to crash. Housing it's not going to be worth anything. Like, this is such a bubble. And the reality is, it's like, I think that if housing were to come down to a point where you're like, oh, I lost money on this, right? Like, it's never going to be recoverable. I would say that will happen when there's way bigger problems, and the last thing on your mind is going to be, oh, housing crashed. It's everything crashed. Everything is just like wrecked. So if it were to crash, I don't think it's going to be something that does not recover. In which case, just keep holding it. Don't sell it when it's dropped. Because if it's actually going to crash and not recover, it's because the whole world is in shambles. In which case, bigger concerns. Similar thing with AI here. I don't think that we're all about to lose our jobs. And by the time AI is advanced enough where it's something that could replace our jobs, it's because it's replacing or able to replace almost all jobs. I just don't think we're anywhere close to that. Just because AI can do something that a human does or close to does not mean that jobs are all replaced, right? It means you can start to introduce them more, you can start to leverage them more. But trying to make people fearful that it's all like everyone's jobs are just gone, I think we're so far away from that. Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Like, what happens? What does it look like when that happens, right? When everyone's jobs can be replaced by AI, what do we do? Are we gonna, like, do we just say, okay, well, food's free now for everyone? You can live for free, and we'll just have AI do all the work for us? Because, like, what do you have to, you don't have to pay the AI, right? And like, you also, I don't know, like, you got to live, but you don't have an income because you can't, no one can have a job because we've all been replaced by AI. Like, it's just a weird thought. I think when we reach that point, we got bigger concerns, or like society's shifted in such a way that I can't really fathom. So I guess to wrap up thoughts on this, because I still have another 30 minutes of driving in this traffic. I thought yesterday was the worst. Today is going to be far worse. Because I'm in the fast lane crawling here. It's like a parking lot. I think if you're interested in becoming a software developer, there's still lots of room. I feel comfortable saying that. I am eager. I'm excited to see where AI is going. I'm excited for it to replace the parts of work I don't want to be doing. This bus that's coming up on the left is going to try and zipper merge in front of all of us, and I'm going to lose my mind, because once that bus is in front of us, it's going to be going below the speed limit. Here we go. See this thing? I hate it. So dumb. That's one of the only things that could make this ride worse. There's a stupid bus in front of us. Okay, folks, well, I'm just going to be pissed off for the rest of this drive now, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Sorry that was probably a little bit more disorganized, even more so than usual. But it's good. I'll be back in the car for videos going forward again, so we'll be back in style, which is nice. Yeah. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Take care.